Good morning, everyone. Somebody noted that from the last time I was here, I have a little more gray hair. I'm wearing these. Everything else is unchanged, I promise. And when Modi referenced the Oliver Carr, who's 94, I'm not there quite yet. So that's my dad. And the answer about why we're so driven, it's simple. I'm the youngest of 6, and you always want to outdo your elder siblings, right? So that's my story. But I want to start today. I'm really proud to be here once again, but I want to start by acknowledging our team, because without our team, that's what makes our company. So I want to point out John Schissel, who is our president. John's been with us through 2 iterations, but he does a terrific job. John just turned over the CFO responsibility to Eric Tracy, who's with us today. Also joined by Austin Holderness, who leads our development efforts, Francis Lynch, who leads our investment team, Jackson Prentice, who oversees our portfolio management, Alony Hetz, who's our secret weapon and leads our technology efforts, and then Jesse Mishler, who runs our financial planning and analysis team. So I'm privileged to be here with the members of my team today. I also want to acknowledge and thank Alony Hetz for all of the support, both financially, philosophically from Nathan, but it's been a great ride, and it's hard to believe we've known each other now for almost 10 years. So getting into the presentation. It was interesting when the pandemic first started. Nathan called and said, "Ollie, we want you to take it easy, no new deals. This is a time to see how the world shakes out." For the most part, we listened, not entirely. So we were pretty active over the past few years. So this is what the company looks like today. We have just under $4 billion of owned real estate, 5.6 million square feet, a development pipeline of 1.5 billion feet, 1.5 billion, 16 existing operating assets, and we've now expanded into our 3rd market. One theme that you've heard from Brockton and you heard Nathan and Modi speak to is all about the bifurcation in quality assets versus older stock. And when you look at our portfolio, I think it's a perfect example of the quality of assets, the rich offering of amenities and service that we think stand out today and what our customers are looking for. And I think when you really invest in your assets, you build out the amenity base, the design, the services that your customers are looking for, that helps to future-proof your portfolio and put us in a great position for the future. So in terms of our markets, Ben spoke a bit about the U.S. market and gave you some insights into DC, Boston, and Austin. I'd say when you look again across our buildings, the consistent theme is quality. So every one of these assets is either a building that we built or a building that we have fully renovated and repositioned. And that's led to our outperformance versus the underlying markets. All of our buildings are transit-based, meaning you can walk easily to public metro in the case of DC and Boston. And in Austin, Texas, our buildings are positioned where metro will be coming. We're also located in very walkable neighborhoods. So people want to work in buildings where it's an easy walk to lunch or dinner or bars after work, places where people want to come together. And that's what our portfolio embodies. And just a quick comment about the different markets, because Ben spoke in depth about what's driving, Boston, Austin, and DC. But DC is an enormous market. I mean, at 330 million square feet, second largest market in the US, even at a time where our market has been a little bit slower, just given the sheer size, there's always going to be opportunity. So we're proud to call DC home, and it served as a very stable market over time. And I think that as defense spending gets much more important globally, and especially in the US, you're going to see more demand coming in the DC area. I also, applaud President Biden for encouraging the federal government to get back to work. We don't lease to the federal government, but the federal government is critically important in the city in terms of being a real demand generator, both for office space, but also for the local economy. Boston has been incredibly strong, and that's in part due to life science demand, where life science has been moving into traditional office and soaking up excess supply. And Boston is clearly the leading innovation hub on the East Coast. Ben spoke to the academic drivers at MIT and Harvard, but between technology growth and life science growth, it's proving the thesis around innovation that we very much believe in. And then Austin, Texas really is the alpha market. It's seeing incredible growth. It's receiving a lot of inbound demand from California, and we're extremely well positioned in Austin to capture that growth. So speaking of growth, this is a photo of One Congress and our Block 16 project in Austin. One Congress has been an amazing success, and I'll get into more detail in a few minutes. But One Congress delivers in the first quarter of 2023. It's almost a $1 billion cost project, so it's a significant tower. It's the largest tower built in downtown Boston, I believe, in about 30 years. And we own 75% of One Congress. Block 16, that's our next big project in Austin, Texas. It's got a total cost of just over $500 million. We expect to start construction on Block 16 in the first quarter of 23. It's a 3-year build, and that building will deliver in early 2026. We do expect a joint venture half of this building. That's a bit to be determined, but that's the current plan. And then in terms of our strategy, I'll walk you through our timeline of how we've expanded into new markets. But it's been a very careful and methodical approach. In Boston, we started with the acquisition of an interest in One Congress, but we want to own, a mix of income-producing, more stable assets, as well as owning, the development upside and profit potential. So we next acquired 200 State Street, which is a really high-quality building on the waterfront of Boston, tremendous views, tremendous location. And then, we were very fortunate to land State Street Bank as our anchor tenant at One Congress before we had started construction. So that's a great way to stabilize a building with a 500,000-foot anchor lease to one of the highest credit quality companies in the world. From there, we increased our ownership in One Congress and bought a position in 75-101 Federal, which is a really well-located building in the financial district of Boston. So you can see steady progress in the market. Then during COVID, like I said, we listened to Nathan, but also got a little flexibility to grow and stay active. So we were able to enter the Austin, Texas market during the pandemic. And frankly, because we stayed active during the pandemic, I think that's how we were able to get a very attractive buy at 100 Congress. That's known as one of the best quality buildings in Austin. It's an existing asset right on the waterfront. They have a body of water there called Lady Bird Lake, and this building fronts it. We like the asset because, we had the ability to drive rent growth and renovate and amenitize the building so it would outcompete the market. And we're seeing that thesis, play out in reality. Next, we were able to acquire the Block 16 development site in downtown Austin. And what we have in mind here is a really iconic design, and we want to bring to bear everything that we believe should be in a Carr building with, tremendous interior designs, great outdoor space, market-leading amenities, access to food and beverage, everything that we believe our customers want. So this is our new brand tagline, more than an address, and we're investing heavily in how we can really create a branded product within office. So the core drivers of how we think about brand are actually pretty simple. It's all about having really well-designed buildings, both base building architect as well as interior design. One thing that we do differently that I think most office companies in the US don't do is we separate interior design from the design of the building. So we typically will hire an interior design firm from the hotel industry to come in and design all of our public spaces. And we found that's led to a much better result in terms of creating warm community-like spaces within our buildings. We also invest heavily in amenities. So at a Carr building, you're going to find first-class fitness centers, great food and beverage, frequently, great outdoor roof areas. We think over time this is going to translate into our ability to actually have events at our buildings, and that should hopefully unlock a new revenue source for us. That's our plan. And then lastly, we invest heavily in service. So again, one thing in office that we believe has been overlooked is the service aspect. We think there's a real opportunity for our team to deliver, a hospitality experience so that when you're a customer in a Carr building, you feel much more like you're working at a hotel versus a traditional office building. So we also view our role as being much more of a partner with our customers. We want to create environments that help our customers grow and thrive. Because if that's happening, they can attract and retain, the best talent. In terms of recognition, this is really a credit to our team. They do amazing work, and I'm really proud of the recognition we've received in the industry. We're building some of the best buildings in America. I mean, when you look at One Congress, when you look at the Wilson and the Elm in Bethesda and Signal House, these are transformative buildings. And again, it speaks to the skill set of our team. So in terms of some, portfolio metrics and statistics, I mentioned we're building some of the best buildings in the country. That's why we've seen, over $500 million of gain generated from our development activity. Our portfolio stands today at 93% leased. That's about a 10%, margin above market. And we're doing this with a very conservative balance sheet. So we operate at leverage, right around 40%. Today we stand at 43%. In terms of what we've done from a return perspective, I mean, these have been very challenging times through the pandemic, and we're proud that we've outperformed our public market peers by 22% from a total return perspective since Alony Hetz invested into the company in 2013. So you can see, we've generated about a 7% annual return from the time they invested. Here's another view of historical growth. So over 100% growth in NOI, 63% growth in FFO, and 24% growth in NAV. Add together our dividends at 30%, and that's how you get to the overall growth. In terms of where we're heading, we are sticking closely to the rule of sevens, which says, you should at a 10% return, you double every 7 years. So we're forecasting, about a doubling in NOI by 2028. And what's critical about this projection is this is really all coming from our existing capital base. So we're not planning on raising incremental equity to drive this growth. The one exception is we have introduced a dividend reinvestment plan. So we expect to raise about $60 million of capital, by our shareholders reinvesting in the company. But aside from that, this is self-generated growth. We are also planning to bring in a partner on our Block 16 development in Austin at a 50% level. Looking at FFO, it's a similar story, growing by 130 to 150% over the period. What's driving much of this growth is our gains on development. So we've got embedded upside in our One Congress project, Block 16, and our Elm residential project in Bethesda, in addition to growth in cash flow in the existing portfolio. In terms of our financial position, we're conservatively leveraged, and our forward maturities are, I think, very reasonable. The lumpy debt maturities you see in 25 and 26, that relates to the expiration of our corporate credit facility, which is a combination of a revolving credit as well as term loans. But based on the strength in the bank market, our conservative balance sheet, we see no issues with refinancing any of this debt. So through the pandemic, I'll acknowledge it was a challenging time, right? It was for everyone personally, it was for us corporately as well, and there was concern, what's going to happen in terms of rent collections during this period, and I'm really proud of how we performed. So what we saw is that we maintained our rent collections at 99% of contract through the period. So I think that's really exceptional. And when you look at the risk profile of our tenant base, only 3% of our revenue comes from retail, and retail was the most impacted. So in our view, having great restaurants and retail at our ground floor is really important. So we did provide rent relief to our retailers to keep them going through this period. I think our relationship with them has gotten much closer, and they're all now really coming back and thriving. So I think that was an excellent decision to work closely with our retailers. We're also protected. We have a weighted average lease term in the portfolio of over 7 years, and we've been busy. We leased over 800,000 feet during the pandemic. I'd say the only negative effect we've experienced during the pandemic has been a reduction in parking revenue. Parking represents roughly 4% of our revenue base today. That's declined by about 45% during the pandemic. That's solely because people weren't coming to work, as Ben spoke to, but we're now seeing parking utilization come back in a big way. So in terms of, where the company's headed and what we think is important, I think this image is terrific in showing, kind of old office and the office of the future. So the building on your left, you see, I think, a couple of people sleeping at their desks maybe. You see an environment with no fitness, no ground floor retail, really no life. It's a place where people go to toil. I think the building of the future and what our buildings represent, you're going to have a great experience. So it's all about an activated ground floor with restaurants and meeting spaces. We have music in our lobbies. We have a scent in our lobbies, like a hotel, if you can believe that. We have tremendous fitness centers. All our fitness centers are free for our customers to use. And we hear so many comments that our fitness centers are the same quality as like an Equinox, if you're familiar with Equinox. So best in class. So our customers love it. And as both David and Ben alluded to, we think it's critically important to build in flexible workspaces. So how people work going forward is different, and we think it's really important. We call it the layer cake. We were talking about that a few years ago, but to build in layers of co-working, of flexible work, in addition to more traditional long-term space. So the office of the future, looks very much like an activated, much more hotel-like environment. In terms of hospitality, so these aren't just words. We hired a senior brand executive out of Marriott who now leads branding and marketing for the company. We hired a senior executive from Hilton Hotels who now leads our interior design team. I think find another office company in the U.S. with a interior design lead. I mean, that's very unique. So we believe, in what we're talking about here. So great design, activated areas, destination food and beverage, and our team, we're all going through distinguished hospitality training. So we think how our people interact with our customers every day is a difference maker, as you would expect. So in terms of sustainability and health, I think David gave a great introduction about how important sustainability is, to the building customers, to our investors, to our lenders, frankly, to our team at Carr. They want to work at a company where they know, we're doing the right thing for the environment. So that's critically important. And we're a market leader in terms of, qualifying, having our buildings qualify for LEED certification, WELL building certification. But I think one thing that gets missed is it's not just about sustainability, it's also about health. So we're investing heavily in the best air quality systems and, again, making our buildings fun, having great food and beverage and activation areas. So it's sustainability and health are critically important. Then in terms of technology, Alon Zakar, who's with us today, we view Alon as our secret weapon. But I think our team has done a great job in building out technology, not just for technology's sake, but technology we can use. So it's all about using smart data analytics to run our buildings more efficiently, make sure our customers are well taken care of, and also to use technology to help create community in our buildings. So Alon has done a terrific job for us. So I will admit that we are developers at heart. We like new things, and we think consistent with all the market, feedback you've heard today, new buildings outperform, and new buildings are what our customers want today, so long as they include, sustainability features, health features, the amenities, the food and beverage, everything, you've heard throughout the day today. And our portfolio is pretty young and well positioned. So we've built over 50% of the buildings we own today. That'll increase to 70% of our assets once One Congress and Block 16 are delivered. And we have renovated every one of our buildings, or they're in process of being renovated. So our buildings are very well positioned for what, the nature of work is today. The Wilson and the Elm, I think I spoke about this a little bit in May of 2019 when we were here. This is a very complex project. It's 2 towers, about 365,000 feet of office, about 440,000 feet of residential, built next to a new metro station. So you have access to the public metro system in DC. There's also a new commuter rail being built in the same location. Highly complex, a lot of integration with the transit facilities, and I think we pulled off an amazing execution during COVID. So building during COVID was no small feat. So the Wilson and the Elm have delivered. The Wilson, 100%, pre-leased during the pandemic. I think that speaks to the quality of the asset. And the residential portion, the Elm, we're receiving the highest rents in the Bethesda market by about 15%. And the building currently is just under 70% leased, and we expect to be fully leased as we head into the end of this year. So this is an iconic complex. The office and the multifamily play together really well, and we've got tremendous ground floor retail. So this building has transformed Bethesda, Maryland, which is a key kind of urban suburb just outside of DC. The next building is Signal House. This was a adventure into creative office, and I think our team executed at a really high level. Signal House is designed by Gensler, and it embodies, everything technology and innovation, oriented companies want today, with a cool design, high ceilings. We've got an amazing roof deck with views of the U.S. Capitol, great food and beverage offerings on the roof. Austin convinced me to put a DJ booth. He's cooler than I am, in the top floor of the building, but our customers love it. And again, challenging timing, delivering during the pandemic, but we're just about 70% pre-leased. TikTok is our lead tenant at the building, so the thesis around technology played out just as we expected. TikTok keeps falling more in love with the building over time, which we like. They started with a lease for just over one floor, then they grew to a second floor, and now they've leased about 3 1/4 floors in the building. Hopefully more to come. The next building in development, so this delivers in the first quarter of 23. One Congress is something very special. It's the tallest building in the financial district, built in about 30 years. It's a market-leading asset in terms of sustainability, commitment to health. What's very unique is on the 11th floor of One Congress, we have 3/4 of an acre of outdoor space, gardens, outdoor meeting space, and outdoor beer garden, combined with about 25,000 feet of indoor amenity space with best-in-class food and beverage, market-leading fitness facility, and we hired a tremendous interior design firm, so the lobby is really warm and inviting and feels like a hotel. We think it's the best building in Boston, and the market has been very supportive. So Modi stole my thunder a little bit talking about the new lease we have, but we haven't quite finished the lease negotiation. It's in process, but we expect in the next 30 to 45 days, this building will be 100% leased, which again, for a 1 million foot tower, delivering and being built during a pandemic is really impressive. So I think that speaks to the quality of the asset. And the one on the books, the next one to come, is Block 16 in Austin, Texas. So it's not easy to enter a new market like Boston or Austin and land opportunities like this. So again, I want to acknowledge the hard work of our team in generating these kinds of high quality investment opportunities. Block 16 will be the best tower in downtown Austin, offering tremendous views. You can see these cuts in the facade. That's where we will deliver, about 32,000 feet of outdoor space on, tremendous terraces. And the building will embody, everything we believe in, again, with market-leading amenities, an activated ground floor, and tremendous views. And one interesting, health-oriented comment about Block 16 is we plan to introduce HEPA filtration into the building. So that's the highest standard of air filtration, consistent with what hospitals do, airplanes do. This will be the first building in our portfolio to use HEPA filtration, but I think that will be a real differentiator, when we're in the market trying to attract tenants. It's all about health, sustainability, and the experience of the customer. So that's a wrap. Thank you very much for listening, and we're incredibly thankful of the support and the relationship with Alony Hetz. And I like Nathan's comment. We're planning in decades, so I hope to be here again over the next 10 years. So thank you very much.